I'm Raven Whittington, and I'm a chamber board member and your MC for this morning, taking Jim Porter's spot, who is out on one of his adventures. So this morning we're going to talk about avalanches and search and rescue, and we're happy to be joined by Dave Reichel, who's the executive director of Sierra Avalanche Center, Logan Talbot, who's a board member from the Tahoe Nordic Search and Rescue, and Stephen Sigg and Jared Drake, co-writers and directors of Buried, the film about the 1982 Alpine Meadows Avalanche. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. And as always, thanks for Rory and the team at Tahoe Truckee Media for doing all the filming. And just a reminder to everybody that you can rewatch this program on Channel 18. It's run throughout the month. And then the recordings are also available on demand at Truckee.com and TahoeTruckeeMedia.com. And we'd like to thank our sponsors this morning for Good Morning Truckee, the Tahoe Forest Health System, Auerbach Engineering, Dixon Realty Truckee Tahoe, JK Architecture Engineering, NV5, Porter Simon, Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation, Tahoe Truckee Media, Sierra Sun, Moonshine Inc., 101.5, Truckee Tahoe Radio, the Town of Truckee, and the Truckee Tahoe Airport District. And this morning we're going to do things a little bit differently because we have a packed program, so we're going to hold all of our questions till the very end. There'll be a 5-minute period at the very end after the three speakers to submit questions. You can go ahead, though, and text them if you want to throughout the program at 530-412-3719, or you can put your questions in the chat if you're watching on Zoom. So without further ado, let's get started. And we're going to start with Dave Reichel, who's with the Sierra Avalanche Center. And as you know, the pandemic has made backcountry use skyrocket, meaning that avalanche awareness and education is vitally important. And Dave Reichel is the executive director of the Sierra Avalanche Center. He brings extensive avalanche industry experience to the organization, and he's the former executive director of TAMBA, Tahoe Area Mountain Biking Association. He's a senior guide and avalanche educator with the Shasta Mountain Guides and was a wilderness instructor at Lake Tahoe Community College. So please welcome David and go ahead.
Thank you for that intro. Let me just share my desktop here and start with the presentation. Is everyone seeing that? All right.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm David Reichel, Executive Director of the Sierra Avalanche Center, and I'm going to get started sort of going through how the Sierra Avalanche Center puts together our daily forecast, which is our main sort of product, and then maybe touch on a couple other things that we do for our community. But yeah, so this map here is our forecast area. It's where we issue forecasts for every day, all winter long. So every morning at 7, we'll say what the avalanche danger is in this area and what the various avalanche problems are. So it's the greater Lake Tahoe area, essentially, where there's a fair bit of winter recreation activity around Tahoe. So, and we'll come back to this, but this is what it looks like yesterday, which I haven't checked because it just came out while we were getting ready for this, but I'm pretty sure it looks exactly the same today, essentially, because we're sort of stuck in a endless cycle. Today is February 8th, right? And we've issued low avalanche danger since January 8th. So it's a month due today exactly, where we've basically been in the same pattern. But this is the product essentially that we produce every morning for the public to help keep them safe. It tells what the avalanche danger is and what the avalanche problems are, what specific monsters to avoid for the day. And I want to talk about how we put that together. So we go out and we look at the recent snowpack and the avalanche observations that have come in from our professional staff and the public. And then we also look at last night's weather, what is happening overnight, and then today's weather forecast. So every morning at 5-ish in the morning, that's what our forecasters are taking into consideration when they create that forecast that we just looked at. And what does that actually mean? So, we're out in the backcountry looking at the snow on the surface, digging holes, all that sort of stuff. Here is some beautiful surface hoar growing on the surface of the snow. It's beautiful and no problem at all. But once that gets buried, it can be a very dangerous weak layer, those beautiful feathers that we're seeing in that photo. We're traveling around in the backcountry skiing on snowmobiles, all sorts of methods, and looking looking at recent avalanche activity and trying to understand where that was, what was the trigger, why did it happen, all that sort of stuff. We even take observations from members of the public. Here's Logan, the next panelist, with an observation he submitted a couple years ago, I think on Silver Peak, and really high quality observation from highly trained members of our public are super valuable. We have a field staff of 6, 3 forecasters who work for the Forest Service, and 3 professional observers who work directly for the nonprofit. It's myself. And so we very much benefit from the public sharing their observations as well, because obviously we can't cover everything. So when we get something like this from Logan or anybody, it's absolutely gold, and we're incredibly appreciative. Here he is. He's got his hands in some weak sugary snow that he's sharing via video with our public audience, and really high quality observation from a couple of years back. We take that information, and this is more like high level, but we can communicate exactly what we're seeing in the snowpack with other folks using one of these snow pit graphs. If you use our forecast and you see this and you don't understand everything on it, that's completely fine. Maybe something to work on over time, but it's just a way for us to communicate within sort of the professional ranks exactly what we're seeing in our pits. And then we also are on social media, and we share what we see that way as well. So here's another example of a public observation of recent snowpack issues. And we obviously share this out on our Instagram account. But this snowboarder, and this is in the Blue Lakes kind of Carson Pass zone, kind of jumped over these little cliffs. And if you watch here, you can see the crack starting up above. And, his crew caught this avalanche as it was starting. And it, turned into a quite sizable avalanche. That snowboarder was completely fine. No one was hurt at all in this. He wasn't buried. But, that observation was super valuable. So this is just an example of the recent snow observations that we take into consideration when we're putting together our forecast. And then the sort of polar opposite of the exciting, skier triggered avalanche we just saw was the remote weather data the forecasters are looking at, at dark 30 in the morning while they're putting together the forecast. And then eventually they publish this quick bottom line, just 2 or 3 sentences in terms of what you need to be aware of when you're heading out the door about what's going on with the avalanches, the avalanche danger. And we break that down into what it is below tree line, near tree line, and above tree line in the alpine. Again, it's been a little dull for the last month. In addition to the avalanche danger, we also share what the avalanche problems are. And these aren't current, these are from the archives. But, we have a persistent slab problem when there's a weak layer that's going to stick around for a while and be especially problematic. Buried surface ore, which we looked at earlier, would be an example of this. So, the forecast really has 2 big pieces of information that are helpful, kind of categories of information that are helpful for the public: what the avalanche danger is in general, and then what particular avalanche problems are out there. And these are sort of, what monster is lurking. We haven't had avalanche problems in our forecast for the last several weeks because of the, no snow and mild temperatures, but we have a rapid warm up in our future, likely. And it's possible to see like a loose, wet, a warming related avalanche problem listed in our forecast during that period, perhaps. And so, the behaviors and techniques and avoidance strategies that we use when we have a warm avalanche problem are very different from when we have a persistent avalanche problem, like what is shown on this page. And so just to go through the piece of information there, the first icon there is the type, telling us that that's a persistent avalanche problem. And then we have the compass rose, which shows us, where that monster lives, on the northern side of the compass, and then at all elevations with this particular one. The likelihood of triggering, so this one was possible to trigger. And then the size, is it going to be small or historically large or just large, giving us an idea of how big of a beast might be lurking out there. Wind slabs, so just another example of a avalanche problem, quite common one for us when we're actually getting storms. It's very common that our storms come in with some wind, and thus a wind slab avalanche problem is common as well. And then we do the best we can to get that information out there. So we share the forecast every morning by 7 a.m. You can get it on our website, sierraavalanchecenter.org. You can call. You can get it delivered to your email every morning, and that's the full forecast just in your email, which a lot of people like. And then we share it out also on social media. on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And on Facebook and Instagram, the forecast that we're able to share directly there is a little bit limited just because of the restrictions of those platforms. And on Twitter, it's essentially a link that brings you back to our website. So, the social media stuff is a little bit like fast food. It's probably not a good idea to eat that all the time for all of your sources of the forecast, but it's helpful occasionally, or at least it's convenient occasionally. So leaving the forecast, which is our primary way that we communicate information and try to inform and educate the backcountry public in Tahoe, I want to touch on a couple other of our efforts. So we try to make our forecast as digestible and intuitive as possible, but avalanche awareness and education can be a little complicated. And so formal classes are a great way to increase the overall kind of IQ of the public and help everyone understand what we're trying to communicate better. So we've been giving out thousands of dollars every year in the fall in the form of Avalanche scholarships to try and increase the awareness of our users so that they can understand what we're doing a little bit better and stay safe. So these are just some photos that recipients of our scholarships over the last several years have shared with us. And this ranges from level 1 avalanche classes to rescue courses to professional courses. So here in the Tahoe area, we have a pretty thriving guide service industry that offers lots of high quality avalanche courses. But on the professional level, some of those aspiring guides can struggle to find the sort of professional level courses, and those can be expensive and require trips to Wyoming or whatever. And so we also support those folks who will then take that knowledge and come back and share it with the public. So this is one of our efforts that we're pretty proud of. In the fall, we offer the California Avalanche Workshop, which was been in person a couple years ago, but we've been doing versions like this for the last couple of years. And it's conversations with avalanche professional skiers, snowboarders, ski patrollers, researchers, guides, meteorologists, those sorts of folks sort of sharing their expertise with the public. And this is a pretty great way to get some pre-season, kind of continuing education to scrape away the cobwebs and get started for traveling in backcountry, winter backcountry terrain. And then we also, through support from the California California State Parks and also Nevada off-highway vehicle programs, have money to provide avalanche training for snowmobilers. There's no private guide services offering these courses for snowmobilers in our area right now. So the Sierra Avalanche Center uses grants to offer these courses for free to the motorized community to try and keep them safe as well. And these have been very popular for the last half a dozen or so years that we've been offering them. All right, and that's what I have. That's my contact information if anybody would like to reach out, and I think we can do questions at the end or whatever. And I'm going to try and stop sharing.
All right, David, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And it's an incredible resource. And I know that I live on the app in the wintertime, at least when there's snow falling out of the sky, which has been hard pressed this year. But if you don't have the app, you should get it because it's an essential tool for the backcountry. All right. Well, Logan Talbot is our next presenter, and he's with the Tahoe Nordic Search and Rescue, and he's a certified mountain guide and the co-owner of Alpenglow Expeditions and a board member of Tahoe Nordic Search and Rescue. Logan has extensive experience with mountain search and rescue, having worked for Yosemite, Denali, and Tahoe Nordic Search and Rescue. The organization's been keeping Tahoe safe since 1976 with fast, thorough, and safe rescues and educating the public on backcountry safety. So, Logan, take it away.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Let's get the screen share going. You guys see my presentation? Okay. Well, thanks, David, by the way. That was great. Great precursor. We, in addition to providing that information to the public, local professionals, educators, mountain guides, and of course, search and rescue volunteers use that information every single day that would go out into the field in the wintertime. So we couldn't stay safe and do our job nearly as effectively without the Avalanche Center. So there's kind of a theme here, and that's community efforts to keep everybody safe in the backcountry from multiple angles. And that's certainly part of it. So thank you, David, and everybody at the Avalanche Center. So I'm a board member at Tahoe Nordic Search and Rescue. I've been on the team about 10 years, and I just want to share a little bit of the information, kind of talk about the team for a few minutes, and make sure everyone knows the resource that you have available at your fingertips here in Eastern Placer County and also in surrounding counties. As was mentioned, the mission of the search and rescue team is to conduct fast, thorough, and safe rescues. And also, that's our primary mission, and also to help educate the public. So there's a big education component here, and it's quite important. Obviously, searching for people and bringing them to safety is great, but preventing incidents from happening and people getting lost in the first place bears mentioning. The team was formed in 1976. Almost, our 50-year anniversary is going to be coming up here in a couple of years. And it formed in the aftermath of a tragedy, actually at North Star Ski Resort. Two 12-year-old boys got lost, and they got out of bounds in a really heavy blizzard, not unlike our last big storm over Christmas. And there was a distinct lack of organized search and rescue in the area. And one of the boys' fathers grabbed a bunch of volunteer skiers effectively to get together, and they went out and searched for him. And by the time they found Lance Severson, he had passed away due to the storm. And it was a terrible tragedy, but what came out of that was the realization that there was no organized search and rescue in Lake Tahoe at the time. And that was the impetus behind forming Tahoe Nordic Search and Rescue. Lance's father, Larry, is still involved in the team 45 plus years later. And a number of those skiers that were out that day still are involved with the team. We're, similar to other local volunteer teams, we're 100% volunteer. We don't get any government funding from Placer County, from the state of California, or the feds. So all of our funding comes from fundraising and grants and partnering with agencies like the Truckee Tahoe Airport, which helped us get our new snowcat a few years ago. We've got 100 active members. It's a very large team. We, as of yesterday, we have 300. I just had to edit this morning last night, because we just had a couple more missions over the weekend. We've completed 393 searches, and we've found 663 people in that time. So it's quite busy. We are affiliated with Placer County, and so there's also a team on the western slope. So our primary response area is Eastern Placer County, which effectively is just south of Truckee down the west shore towards El Dorado County. We also work with our partner counties. So we train with and help out when they call for help on Nevada County and Washoe County to the east, El Dorado County to the south, and of course the western slope there. And so we're certainly, our primary area is right here in North Lake Tahoe, but we certainly will travel when called upon. The education component is important to us, and that we actually share that with the Avalanche Center. A big part of our organization is educating our friends and family and public here, and so we've taken the angle of educating the kids. So for many years now, we've gone around to all the fourth grade classes in the area, Truckee, Tahoe City, Kings Beach, Incline, and we give them basic survival tips, because unfortunately, a number of kids have gone missing over the years. We also do a big winter awareness assembly for ninth graders, and then we also offer formal avalanche education to high schoolers. So it varies depending on the year. This year we have an area rescue course, which is a one-day intensive course on pure avalanche rescue that we're going to be running in mid-March, and that's a scholarship. We're going to be paying for everything, and that's coming up. And I think there's links to that on our website if there's any high schoolers out there that are interested in getting that education. Education is extremely important, and we're pretty fired up to help that out with the community. So the team itself, we've got a variety of resources at our disposal to help us effect rescues and searches and aid the public. The team was formed with backcountry skiers looking for skiers, and so the majority of our members are backcountry ski searchers. And it could be said that all resources of the team, the snowmobile team, the snowcat team, the helicopter rescue team, the communications team, all come together to support the skier. And that's not always the case, but primarily that is the case. So we have many dozens of skiers. We have the general membership, we've got the B team, and then the A team. And the more training and experience and qualified you have, we will send you out in the middle of the night in a raging blizzard up on the Sierra Crest to go find people. We also have a snowmobile team, and they're our best friends out there, and they help us get a lot of miles done under our belt and reach much further into the backcountry than we alone as skiers can reach on our own in a short amount of time. One of the things we want to do is conduct fast rescues and get people out home to safety and warmth, and having a snowmobile is a big help with that. We also have a couple of snowcats. We just got a brand new piston bully snowcat, big, beautiful red machine that looks like the ones you see at the ski resort. And that was purchased in partnership with the airport district, like I mentioned, and it's got a big cab on the back, and we can haul 8 people in the back of that. And there's a heater, and we've been able to save quite a few people with that machine. And it's a really key tool for us. Communications team, we have a comm band and a bunch of people that aren't necessarily going into the field, but they still want to help their community, and so they'll be running things in communication and logistics at the command post. And it's really nice to have someone on the other end of the radio helping us out when we're out there in the dark and cold and dangerous situations. And then we have some sub teams. We have people that specialize in rope rescue and helicopter rescue. This photo on the far right is just taken the other day, yesterday actually. We partner with the California Highway Patrol, and we were able to insert rescuers with skis and specialized rescue equipment directly to the scene of an incident, along with our partners at the fire department that might be able to insert a paramedic and deliver a pretty high quality search and rescue product, right? And this is a little more in line with what you might see in Yosemite or Chamonix. And we're pretty proud of that program in the event that someone needs help immediately, and something that might take many hours or potentially a day or two to get to, we can insert a rescuer directly to that person within a short period of time with a helicopter. So that's it's really fantastic. Searches, we've done many hundreds of searches. The typical search for us is the call doesn't come in till after dinner or maybe dinner time. And it might be a missing skier at the ski resort or a backcountry skier, and we will deploy at night, and we'll search all night long for them. And oftentimes going into some pretty extreme conditions, very deep snow, high avalanche danger. Again, Sierra Avalanche Center coming in pretty key there. We have a lot of professional avalanche educators and guides on our team, but it's really, really helpful to have a better idea of what's going on. And oftentimes we can't see very far because it's raging blizzard, and we're going into harm's way for sure. So it's really important to have extra tools. We also will do searches in the summertime. We've gone out and helped on the terrible fires that have happened in Northern California, and we'll do mutual aid to other counties. Again, we're a resource of the Placer County Sheriff's Department, and so other counties and other agencies can call up Placer County and request us, and we're happy to help. Of course, to maintain our skills and to stay qualified as a Type 1 search and rescue team, we need to train a lot, and so we do. We train all the time, several times a week, basically through the heart of the season. We have a large team with multiple resources at our disposal, and so we to stay current, we need to train in all of those skills, and we'll also train with our neighbors. So we'll train with Nevada County, Washoe County, El Dorado, and things. And we'll go through all of the skills that we want to be good at. We have to maintain proficiency at, and so it's an ongoing topic there. like I said, we're a volunteer team, and we don't have any government funding. So everything that our nice truck that we have was purchased by our main fundraiser, and our primary fundraiser every year is called the Great Ski Race. You may have heard of it. It's been over 40 years we've been running this race. Historically, it's gone from Tahoe City to Truckee. And it was one of the biggest Nordic races in the country, certainly in the West Coast. And we've struggled a little bit with snowfall and snowpack on the west side of the, the north side of the course. This year, what we're going to do is we're going to change it up a little bit. We're going to do a loop, and we're going to start and end at Tahoe Cross Country and doing a big loop around Mount Watson. And we're pretty fired up. We already have a couple hundred racers signed up, and we imagine we'll get a few hundred more. It's March 6th, 2022, 9 a.m. At Tahoe XC. And if you're interested in racing or helping out, we have our own website for that. It's called thegreatskirace.com, and there's also links on our normal website. It's a great, big, fun event, and it's vitally important to our team. We can't do what we do without the community. It's a volunteer community team, and it's put on by the community for the community. Pretty simple. All our team members have at their very core have a desire to help out and be part of the community. So it's a really fun time. I encourage everyone to check it out. Couple words of advice. Again, we've seen a lot of problems over the years. We've seen a lot of accidents and injuries and searches, and a couple basic things just to jot down or take note of that we've found. And these are all these. If there's a bullet point here, it's because we've seen it happen again and again and again. So get some avalanche education is number one. If you're traveling into the backcountry, the winter backcountry snow-covered terrain with avalanche hazard, which is basically the wintertime in Tahoe, right? Take an avalanche course. Read the weather report, right? And the Sierra Avalanche Center, the bulletin that comes out every day is really improved over the years. But now you can just scroll to the bottom of the forecast and the avalanche forecast, and you can actually see a really good weather forecast as well. So it's kind of a one-stop shop. Know your equipment. We see a lot of issues that start with problems with equipment. Make sure you have the right equipment. Travel with a partner in a group and train with that group, practice with that group. Make a plan. It's kind of wild, but people will just, send it out into the backcountry with no real plan. They don't really talk about anything. And it's it's the perfect storm for confusion and problems to arise. With people that get lost, and they call for help or they get reported missing by their loved ones. Nowadays, we have an incredible resource, and that's just our phones, right? When you call 911, the dispatcher can actually get GPS coordinates off your phone. And we can literally ski directly to you or send the snowcat or the helicopter directly to your location. If your phone dies, we can't do that. And it can make a tremendous difference in the outcome of a search. We had 2 searches in the last 2 weeks out of Palisades, Tahoe, and we had cell phone coordinates for both of them. And, I was back in bed by midnight, I think, which is unheard of. And if we didn't have cell phone coordinates or coordinates for that missing person, it would have taken, a lot longer, right? And the longer you spend out in the night, and it's very, very cold and windy and stormy and things, the harder it is to survive and stay safe. So again, simple one, batteries, make sure your phone is charged up. And then have a backup plan. Highly recommend it. So those are just some basic words of advice. And again, we've seen these things occur again and again and again. So I hope that's helpful to everybody. And that's about all I have. Thank you so much. If you want to learn more, please check out TahoeNordicSAR.org. We have a new website. Thanks to some of our partners, and again, maybe a donation or two, so you can learn about it at the website there. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Logan. Really appreciate it. And thanks the Tahoe Nordic Search and Rescue, a organization that you hope you never have to see out in the backcountry, but if you're in trouble, be very, very glad that they're there. All right. So we're going to Next up is Stephen Sigg and Jared Drake, and they are the co-writers and directors of Buried, the film about the massive 1982 Alpine Meadows avalanche. And it's an award-winning documentary that features survivors, rescuers, and eyewitnesses recounting their experience of this pivotal piece of our local history. And if you haven't seen it, you must, and they're going to tell you where and when you can see it. And it captures the spirit of the ski scene in the 80s and what avalanche forecasting was like then. And it's a very, very moving video. And so you guys can go ahead and give us more information.
Thanks for having
us. Great intro.
This is a huge honor to be here. I think, when Sig and I set out to make this movie, I think about 6 years ago, we kind of started diving into this story and kicking the idea around and how this might come to life. Our goal at the time, I think, was a little self-serving in that we wanted to learn. There was this story that existed. There were those that lived it, that were open to sharing their experiences, and we wanted to siphon from them as much as we could for ourselves to grow. As a young dad in Alpine Meadows at the time, like, what can we take from those that lived from 82 and passed on to younger generations and our kids, and the dream at the time, the hope was that the film would eventually be a resource that could kick the conversation forward and be a part of conversations like this. I mean, David, what you guys do at the Sierra Avalanche Center, and Logan, everything you have your hands in, I mean, you guys are on the front lines doing it. And if the film can help and be a resource and be a tool for everyone to learn and grow, then we've succeeded massively. So being here is just a huge honor.
Yeah, and I think Jared touched on something. This is a multi-layered situation that we have. And as we were making the film, layers start stacking on. And what we want to use the film for is, yes, a resource, but it's a lot of ways it's going to become an introduction to what's happening as far as avalanches, avalanche forecasting, snow science, and search and rescue. Because we have these resources like the Sierra Avalanche Center, Tahoe Search and Rescue, but a lot of people need to be aware, first of all, of the danger. And there's so many people that are like, what do you mean there was a big avalanche in Alpine Meadows? And these are mainly people from the Bay Area, bigger cities, etc. And they're not aware that there's an issue out there or a problem. And so this pretty much shakes people to their core and wakes them up. And then they start engaging in the conversation and go, well, what is it that I can do? But then there's another layer that we have, and I don't know if you want to call it a problem, but it's a human condition, and that's hubris. And what we're learning is that there's a lot of people going out in the backcountry and even the ski area, and that there's inherent risks when you are in the mountains. There's inherent risks when you drive too, but these are kind of hidden to a lot of people. And we wanted to use the film, and that's kind of our directive now, is to make this introduction to people who need to be shaken to their core. And I think what we did, and what was very important to us, is that we had to make a good film, and we had to make a powerful film so that it does just that. And maybe we should play the trailer.
Yeah. So this is our current trailer that's out there. Some of you may have seen it.
My name is Jim Plain, and I was the avalanche forecaster for Alpine Meadows Ski Resort.
There's something lurking here, more powerful than anything we've ever experienced before.
It was one of the most hazardous avalanche areas in the country.
There was a specialness in the snow on the surface. Every little thing was moving, and there was a tinkle, literally a tinkle sound to the snow. The snow was alive.
I feel like we're standing on top of a monster. disaster. We had to run down the road to avoid being buried.
This footage has just come in from the Lake Tahoe area.
3 are dead and 5 are missing. That is correct.
It was hard to imagine that anybody could have survived.
The pathologist report shows that all 3 victims died of asphyxia.
That's why all the digging is going on by that tree.
I didn't want it to be me to tell them that.
Avalanche experts are setting explosive charges on the ground and dropping them by helicopter.
They got 40
pounds of boom on their back that could go bad on them.
Every time you found a ski boot, you weren't sure what was attached to the other end of it.
Get yourself ready for this, because no one's walking away from it.
So you can see through the trailer that, going back to what I was saying, is you have to introduce people to these scenarios in a powerful way so that it wakes them up to be aware. And then once they're aware, then they can start searching education. And then that's when it becomes, so we want to be a conduit and introduce what American Avalanche Association does, what the Sierra Avalanche Center does, and then ultimately what the Tahoe Search and Rescue Team has to do in order to get people out of these situations.
Yeah.
But the big part that I thought that was really important, and that was Jim's story. And Jim was the avalanche forecaster, but he was a pioneer of a lot of the science that we call snow science today. And it was really important for us to really talk about what is an avalanche, and then what can happen. That's obvious, that comes out in the film.
Yeah. And, I think, as we set out to make the movie, a lot of people, some people were questioning why tell this story, especially the victims' families. Like, what good can come from this? Why are you guys doing this? It happened 40 years ago. We've dealt with it. We've moved on. What do you hope to gain? And, for us, it was always an opportunity to learn. And if you don't share and communicate and pass your experiences on, then it's an opportunity wasted. And, as we communicated that and reinforced that, look, no one's here to sensationalize anything. We need to learn and grow and take what you experienced in 82 and how you've persevered since, so that we can apply it to who we are, because otherwise it's a lost opportunity. And I think that's a trend that you see now in traveling in the backcountry. The observations, the openness and acceptance of, look, you traveled, you maybe made a mistake, or you observed something, or got caught, or got bit. Like, share it. Like, there's no judgment. There's no share it, because we all need to learn. We're all in the same boat together, and we need to rely on each other to communicate and share what we've seen, so that it doesn't happen again. And I think back to Jim in 82, they were really on the forefront of forecasting. I mean, a lot of what he put in place is still used today, and they didn't necessarily have the historical data and the context that we do now, the opportunity to share and communicate like we do. I think that's a massive, massive advantage that we have today.
You touched on the observations. I think that's one of the biggest things that we can learn, especially when you look at those observations. We learn so much, and that's what our film is. It's an observation, and it tells us a lot. It's taught me a lot about climate change and what we're starting to see, but it even goes further than that. And back to the layers, if it wasn't for people like Sandy and Jim to come and tell their stories, we learned that we have so many themes within this film. It's not just a film about an avalanche and a tragedy and a rescue. It's about community. And that's what this is in the form that we have today. This is what's important, is that we come together as a community. And that's what 1982 proved, is that our community came together. And that is the most important thing, beyond avalanches and beyond this, mental health, it just goes on and on and on. So we're starting to find that the film transcends into so many other avenues of our human experience. And I'm kind of thrilled about it, to tell you the truth, because we get to have these conversations. But maybe we should play one more clip from the film.
Do we have time? I think.
Do we have time?
Yes, you do. Yeah, you have 10 more minutes.
Oh God.
So you can play a clip, and then we can go into questions, because I'm sure there'll be a number of questions for this panel.
Excellent.
I definitely have some.
Yeah. So this clip sets up what makes Alpine unique. Back to what Sig said, we really wanted to shake people awake and kind of scare the crap out of them, so that the next time they come up here, they look around. And as my wife and I moved up to Alpine Meadows about 8 years ago and started learning about this story, what makes these mountains unique, it freaked us out. And we both grew up in small towns skiing. We thought we knew what it meant to live in the mountains. And clearly we were way in over our head. And the realities of being here in these mountains, in Alpine Meadows, in the Sierra, is hardcore. And we realized at the time we either got to jump all the way in, learn what we can so we know how to navigate it, make the right decisions, or we got to bounce, or just live obliviously and hope that that it doesn't catch up to us. Well, that's not a good choice.
So you made the right choice, Jared.
Thanks. And so this clip kind of represents, kind of demonstrates that. I think we're queued up.
I'm really glad you're doing that part.
When I started on the ski patrol, I just loved it.
Jim's college was at Lake Tahoe, and his university was the Sierra Nevada mountains, as we call him, the shaman of the snow.
It's endlessly interesting. No two winters are the same. You're always learning new stuff every year. In those days, the program at Alpine was still quite young. It was run by my mentor and great friend, Norm Wilson.
There was only a handful of avalanche experts, if even that many, in those days, and Norm was one of them.
Norm is a protege of Monty Atwater, who is considered to be the father of avalanche control.
Literally the godfather of avalanche control in the United States. He was at Squaw in the Olympics and came to Alpine in the late 50s when it was being built. He recognized immediately, this is one avalanche kind of place.
Recognized as one of the most hazardous avalanche areas in the country, and it was rated a Class A.
It's like the highest class. There's B's and C's. But I'd say Alpine was really more like an A++ place. The real creator of avalanches is wind-driven snow. The ridgetop of Alpine is perpendicular to the westerly flow of storms.
So it acts like a giant snow fence.
And the winds that come roaring up the valley that's to the west of Alpine pick snow up off slopes that are facing the wind and deposit it on lee slopes.
Right at Alpine Meadows.
And then you tie in the terrain. It's sort of steep right from the top right to the base. On top of that, then, we're in a climate that has greatly fluctuating temperatures. So you get different layers. You get a light layer and a heavy layer, and a light layer and a heavy layer. And obviously, that's a weak scenario. So what happens is, at some point, the layering fails. And when that occurs, a whole entire layer, like a sheet cake, like a layer cake, breaks loose. Alpine was particularly unique. Every lift can be affected. The access road is significantly affected by avalanches. The parking lot and the whole base area is affected by avalanches. It was just this wonderful little avalanche machine.
There's nowhere in the world related to avalanche that's any more dangerous to know.
So you can see one of the tricks was, I'll tell a little story. So you sit down with your interviewees, and they're all, heroes in my mind. It was so hard to get someone to actually simplify what an avalanche is. It's not the easiest thing to wrap your head around, even when you're a professional. So one of the things that I think that's really important about filmmaking is that it is an oral tradition now, but it's an oral and visual tradition. And you have to grab people and show them what it is, so that then they can hopefully take that awareness and, inspire them or motivate them to go out and actually take a hands-on course. And it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but it's also important for the hubris theme that we touch on. And I think that's the biggest issue that we're seeing in the backcountry right now. Time and time and time again, it is experienced backcountry people that are falling into these hubris situations. Last year, we lost 37 people in this country. This year, we're already at 9. And this has become an initiative with us, is that we need these numbers to start coming down. And that's what we hope, that this film can be used as a resource. Jackson Hole Ski Patrol has already used this as their training tool, because we go into so many of those layers that I had talked about, whether it's PTSD, pioneering moment in snow science, etc. And so if we can get people to come and see this film, maybe we get more people to engage with the Avalanche Center, and less people getting involved with search and rescue.
Yeah, and just a quick status update to kind of wrap it up on the film. We're having advanced pre-screening events these next 8 weeks around the country, primarily mountain towns. It kicks off for the most part next week in Santa Monica, and then we go to San Francisco, and then
Truckee.
Yeah, we have an event. Mammoth, Truckee, Colorado.
They start
go to buriedfilm.com. There's a list of our screenings there. But for us locally, a few important events is March 14th. There's an event with the Sierra Avalanche Center. We're partnering with them at the Truckee Community Theater. So definitely come on out. You can find the ticketing link on our website, buriedfilm.com. That'll be an awesome event. We expect that to sell out pretty quickly. And then
the big one is on the 40th anniversary, March 31st. We're working with Palisades Tahoe to have a screening at Ground Zero. And that's going to be a powerful day for so many. And then we'll also have a week-long run at the Tahoe Art House and Cinema starting the 1st through the 7th. And I do have to say that it would have been very easy for Palisades Tahoe and Alpine Meadows to, push us away and say, this is not how we attract skiers and snowboarders. Why would you do this? They did the total opposite. And we have to thank them for engaging with our project and supporting the project. And with a little bit of pressure from us, we'll have that screening on the 31st. And they're feeling very open to it.
Great. Thank you, guys. I know personally I really want to see the film. For people that can't attend in person within, at least on the March events here in Truckee, we were talking prior to the presentations. Is this going to be available for streaming on demand? Give us a little bit of idea about that.
Yeah, we're currently, our official commercial release, which hasn't happened yet, is currently set for March 31st. The film industry is on its head right now with COVID and everything being pushed, and we have a big call tomorrow with our distributor. There's talk about perhaps pushing the commercial release to the fall, which is hard to digest, but I guess we get it on some level. But eventually it will be available, if not March, then September. Sandy,
Sorry, Sandy.
You'll be the first to know. It will be available on iTunes, Amazon, Netflix, all that in the coming months. But definitely keep an eye on our website.
Yeah.
And subscribe to our mailing list.
What's the website again?
Buriedfilm.com, FLIM.com, and subscribe to our mailing list. Follow us on social media, and you'll get up to the date info as to what's happening.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to open it up for questions, and I'll lead the way. If you have questions, you can go ahead and throw them in the Zoom chat. I'm going to start with David. Are there any resources or perhaps on your website where particular high risk slopes are highlighted? And I know that varies from storm to storm, snow conditions, time of year. I'm just wondering if there's a resource for that.
It's a great question. And no, it would be nice if there was a simple mountain on our website and we said, like, these spots are extra sketchy. And like you said, it's not consistent, like those things change. And so a spot, I mean, unfortunately, nothing is very dangerous at the moment, but like spots that might be dangerous during conditions today, might be safe in a week and vice versa. And so it's really hard to do that. We are actually right now engaged with our web developer to try and put a little more searchability into and add some filters to our Avalanche incident sort of database and recent Avalanche observations, so people can see at least within the last month where dangerous places have been. But it's not static enough to, I think, have the resource that you're sort of suggesting, which would be helpful for sure.
Okay, thank you. Logan, question for you. One is, what would be, let's just say, the top 3 things to carry in your jacket at all times? I mean, certainly in the backcountry, you should have a backpack and beacon, etc. But as we know, and as we've seen in the film, there's inbound avalanches all the time. Are there 3 things that you could think of, or maybe it's more than 3 things, or perhaps it's one thing, a phone certainly, that you can just help sort of be prepared whenever you're out skiing?
Yeah, great question for sure. You mentioned the ski area. Even inbounds, the first thing that ski patrol will do if there is an inbounds avalanche, or they call it a post control release, one of the first things they're going to do is do a beacon search of that debris field. Even though recreationalists skiing in the ski area typically don't have avalanche training or anything. But they're going to be doing that. All ski patrollers will, on those type of days, will have a beacon, probe, and shovel on them. So we recommend carrying a beacon, and the ski resort does as well. It's a hazard that they, we call it an objective hazard of riding in the mountains. It's a hazard that cannot be eliminated by professionals. They can mitigate it to a certain extent, but there is no ski patrol in the world that would say this is now safe. Go ahead and we've removed the problem completely. It's just not possible. It's a hazard that we all need to accept, right? Although they mitigate it compared to the backcountry. So a beacon if you're skiing in bounds on a dangerous day. And what is a dangerous day? If you hear bombs going off in the morning, that's a clue. And again, it's a complicated subject, so getting some avalanche training would help you out with that a lot. And then, of course, you mentioned the phone. It's similar to a beacon. It can really, really help if you're lost in the backcountry, or if there's an incident calling for help. Obviously, there's a lot of areas that don't have cell service. But one thing that modern smartphones do is they do have an actual bona fide GPS chip in the phone. So even if there's no cell service, you can't get to a tower, on the backside of Whiskey Creek or backside of Alpine down in Whiskey Creek, there's no cell service. But it'll tell you where you are, right? If you have a map program downloaded to your phone, it's kind of incredible, right? It's like a GPS device. So again, having batteries would really help out. I mean, those 2 things I could keep going, but I'd say that that would really, really help. And again, a few of our recent searches over the years, the presence of or lack of a charged cell phone with a missing person kind of made a pretty big difference. So that's as much as we like to get away from technology when we're walking in the mountains, that's something to consider, because it's not a safe thing, right? There's some objective hazards. So I would recommend that.
All right, thank you. Lynn, did we get any text message questions?
I did not, but I think Ted has one.
Mr. Owens.
Thank you, sir. I have one for Logan. Are there patterns that lost people exhibit? Where they shelter, do they move upslope or down? In other words, do you begin with an idea of what people typically do?
Yeah, great question. We have the luxury of having a pretty large data set in Tahoe anyway over the years, and we have repeat offenders as far as pieces of terrain. And so if we just take the lost skier or snowboarder out of one of our local ski resorts, and all of them have that, every single ski resort in Tahoe has had lost skiers and snowboarders. And we spent a lot of time at North Star, Sugar Bowl, Palisades, and Alpine specifically. And so each one of those resorts has drainages that we routinely find people in. And again, at Palisades in the last couple of weeks, we found 2 people in the same zone. One ended up going further, but the Whiskey Creek drainage, for example, behind Palisades and Alpine, we've probably pulled 60, 70 people out of there over the years. Kind of incredible. So, yes, there's, if we have a call of a missing person, we don't have coordinates. We're going to go, and this is exactly what happened because it took a little while to get our coordinates. We're going to go to these routine repeat offenders, and we'll Troy Caldwell, who was involved in the Buried movie. His piece of property is a great access point for us. We'll launch our snowcat out of there, and it gets our skiers into the wilderness there pretty quick. And we'll go there first, oftentimes, to see if we can catch anybody.
Very good. Right.
All right.
We have less than 4 minutes. I'm going to turn it back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thanks, David, Logan, Jared, and Stephen. And I think the message to take away is we live in an incredibly beautiful place that we have access to the outdoors and wonderful things, but there are hazards and risks around here that you need to be aware of, even on the sunniest day, that this is a serious place. And certainly when you go out in the backcountry and even when you're at the resort, be aware of your surroundings. Okay, we're going to turn it to Harry Weiss, the Tahoe Forest Health District, to give us an update on the local COVID situation. Harry, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Again, as we've shared in the past 38 days have been kind of explosive as we've had a very friendly, very contagious Omicron virus. But the good news is that if we look at these 7-day moving averages for the state of Nevada, for California and so forth, these 7-day moving averages are 6 times lower in terms of average daily cases than they were at the peak. So it's nice to see Omicron really tail downward. It is important to certainly monitor any person's symptoms and to monitor and treat those. And if you have questions, be sure you call our RN hotline at 582-3450. It's still important to really, monitor and treat those symptoms. But we are quite excited by the significant downturn in cases that's going on right now. And so again, the month of February will be very edifying for us, and certainly as we get into March. And we really needed this explosive kind of friendly trend that also was low acuity. Typically it becomes more friendly, but also lower acuity as it tries to stay alive. So we needed this trend to occur, and I'm really hopeful that better days are ahead for the longer term, the latter part of February and into March. And if I'm wrong, I'm certainly willing to admit that, but that's an estimate right now as we still continue to learn a bit. So some pretty good news.
All right. Thanks, Harry. Appreciate it. And we do have one stump speech this morning, Lynn.
Yeah, Heidi Doyle, Sierra State Parks Foundation. Take it away.
Hi, everybody. Well, 175 years ago, an Ale per Prayer group of 87 men, women, and children were trapped in the deep snow around Donner Lake. Their survival was dependent upon communicating their circumstances and soliciting a rescue party. How apropos that these dates go with today's discussion. 4 ultra athlete runners on February 14th through 18th will be retracing the 100-mile trail through the deep Sierra snow taken by the rescuers of the entrapped Donner Party exactly 175 years after the dramatic incidences took place. This is a story of heroism, pathos, and the human spirit. The exact route of the 1847 Donner Relief Party has been lost to history. After 8 years of research by 2 of the athletes, Bob Crowley and Tim Twydemeyer, who last year retraced the path of the Donner escape group known as the Forlorn Hope, they have pinpointed the probable trail through the backcountry of the Sierra Nevada. The group aims to craft a historically accurate map of the initial Donner Relief Party and explore the multi-dimensional personas of each of the relief members, including their histories, characters, and motivations. The route takes them from Johnson Ranch near Wheatland, California on February 14th and ends at Donner Memorial State Park at the Pioneer Monument on Friday, February 18th at noon. And there's 2 events that I think of interest that are open to the public. The first one is Thursday, February 17th at Donner Ski Ranch on Donner Summit, where the 4 athletes will be taking on personas of members of the Donner of the Relief Party and will be taking part of a panel discussion. And then on Friday, February 18th at noon at Donner Memorial State Park, we'll be seeing the rescuers in costume arriving at the Pioneer Monument to end their relief party. This will be followed by a panel discussion. We're excited that the Discovery Channel has taken this on and will be covering this as well. To learn more information about this great event coming up this week, go to our website, www.sierrastateparks.org, or to the forlornhope.org website, and you can actually do real live following of the party when they start this coming Monday. Thanks for your time and have a great week.
Thank you, Heidi. Appreciate it. And big thanks again to David, Logan, Jared, and Stephen. It was a great presentation this morning. And thanks for everybody that joined us here this morning and that's going to watch in the future. And again, just a reminder, you can look at it on demand at Truckee.com, Tahoe, TruckeeMedia.com, and it'll be playing on Channel 18 throughout the month. So everybody, see you next time and enjoy your morning. Take care.